I can't make you successful. I can help you continue on the trajectory here in the US. This is the most competitive market.
Of course.
You're not just competing with native-born Americans. Who cares about the native-born Americans? You're competing with the best immigrants in the world. So you got to bring your A game, work really hard, but you have crazy economies of scale. And if you hit it well and there's right product market fit, whether locally, your neighborhood, extended neighborhood, often a service through a franchise, your own independent business, or it's a virtual type business that you can serve Americans throughout the US, you can make a lot of money.
Hey, lovely people of Visa Franchise. Welcome back to another episode. We're here in our Miami studios. These are Visa Franchise studios. Set up only for you. I'm just not kidding. We just rented a podcast studio here with Patrick Vindara. Patrick, how's it going, my friend?
Good, Aladdin. How you doing, man?
Good. How'd you like the studio?
It's great. Yeah, first time here. I know you did one with our colleague Joaquin.
Yep.
Interviewed our in-house immigration attorney, so I'm glad to be here with you this time around.
Thank you. People like that, and people like, I think, the more attention, and the more you pay attention to looks, I think people like to stay on. So that's why we keep on coming to studios like this to give you guys a better image quality. So if you guys appreciate this, it's a great deal of hassle of coming here, filming all that. If you guys, please subscribe or even give the video a like. We would appreciate it very much so. That being said, Patrick Vindara, today what we're going to talk about is a really, really interesting angle. We're not necessarily going to cover anything that our audience doesn't know already, but we're just going to go at one thing that I started thinking a couple days back when I was watching Donald Trump and his people in the Oval Office when they were introducing the Trump Gold Card. As you know, Donald Trump intends to start a program where you pay $5 million, maybe a government donation, maybe some sort of an investment. We don't know the details yet. But in addition to, as opposed to that, you get a green card. And there was another gentleman, what was his name again?
Howard Lubbock, Commerce Secretary?
Probably. That was the person, and he basically said something to the tune of EB-5 is full of scams, it doesn't work anyway, and why the hell are we giving green cards for people on a lottery basis for free? We want to get rid of these and we want to sell it, and based on Donald Trump's calculations, if 10 million people buy the Trump Gold Card, the U.S. can pay the national debt. It's a very interesting calculation, which got me thinking. I said to myself, hold on a minute. We have been helping our clients to come over to this country, invest something in the region of $100,000, acquire a franchise or open up a business to get legal residency here for 5 years, and then maybe a path to green card. And I said to myself, okay, I really hope that they don't look at E2 visa and try to impose certain implications to it. So taking a step back, Patrick Vindara, what do you make of the recent developments from the Trump administration front, and how do you think it'll affect the E2 visa program? I don't have to call everything a program right now. Do you think we is E2 visa on the line for some changes?
I think there could definitely be some changes to the E2 visa program. And, as you know, our clients are generally investing over $100,000 in a U.S. business. It could be a franchise, as hence the name Visa Franchise, or it could be their own independent business. Maybe they're bringing a product or service from their home country, selling it here in the U.S., or they just, have an idea. They're already living in the U.S. They start a business, but it's always kind of been around like $100K. Maybe change of status, $60,000 if you're already here because it goes through USAS. The Toronto consulate seems generally okay at $80,000, although we've seen approvals of less. So it's been like that since we started Visa Franchise back in October, 2015, almost coming on 10 years. So the number hasn't really changed. There's no written amount for the E2 investor visa. The Foreign Affairs manual that dictates it with the Department of State, and that's what the consulate officers are looking at as they're adjudicating these cases, should be a substantial amount for a business. So if you're opening up a restaurant, probably 200, 300K plus is a substantial amount that you need to invest to open up that business. But, I talked to a technologist that now has his own company, 20 plus employees, originally came on an E2 visa. He invested in $15,000, consulting company. $15,000 was in the bank account back in 2016. out of Colombia, for me, I think that's like a low chance of
How did he get
success.
approved?
And it seems like, like I was pretty surprised when he told me that.
Crazy.
He was educated in the U.S., went to an amazing school. I think it was the whole picture that maybe the U.S. government put a bet on him and was like, okay, $15K, but this guy's he's on to something.
He's going to contribute.
And he was. He was onto something. But there's no minimum for the E2 visa, and they could be, there was the GAO report, the Government Accountability Office, did an extensive report on the E2 visa and interviewed all these stakeholders across USAS for those change of status, to mostly the State Department staffers and officers, and they looked at the investment amount, and only 3% was less than $50,000 for the E2 visa. A significant amount was in the 100K plus range. And, I think that there could be a mandate from Trump to get a little tighter on showing how the funds are invested and maybe cracking down. And like his first term in 2016 to 2022, we focused around, the business plans. Hey, buy American, hire American. And a big part was hiring Americans, whether it be W-2 employees or independent contractors, what we call 1099 on the tax form. So consulates could say, and we've seen this in some consulates, they want to see people hired and they want to see a few months of payroll. So, there could be different kind of mandates or directions where they want to see money allocated and spent on U.S. employees or earmarked to U.S. employees. You could even set up an escrow account that these funds, as mandated by the escrow agreement, need to be used with U.S. contractors and/or U.S. employees, and that's $50,000, $80,000 committed. So there could be more commitment on the E2 visa. One thing with the EB-5, as you mentioned, scams, frauds, the source of funds for the EB-5 is very strict. Where you sold a house in Canada for 5 million Canadian, what's that, 3 mil US? How did you originally get the money to buy that house? They want to know that. Where the E2 visa, the source of funds isn't as strict. So you have guys, clients from Pakistan where they're doing business legally, but it's, they're getting paid different ways. Not everything's going through the banks. It's not a really clear source of funds, but they're in possession of those funds. They legally sourced it, and the consulate officers aren't going back 15 years if someone sold a house. Right. So, and I think that's something that will change too. What we have to do, like another video on the gold card.
The gold card.
I think he's going to get pretty looser on the source of funds, and hey, I don't really care how you made it, as long as you're putting.
I'm trying
it
to
here
pay
in
the
US.
national debt, man. Just bring in the money.
No drug dealers are terrorists, but if you didn't pay taxes in your home country, that's on you in that country. Here, park your money. And we've seen that in Miami. It's so many people buy apartments here. They declare on the tax returns in Brazil or Peru or wherever they come. Hey, not my problem. Money's coming into Miami, coming into the U.S. And I think, let's see with that. But I think the E2 visa could definitely go up. And with immigration, you don't want to wait around. These doors open up. Sometimes they close. Sometimes they get a little tighter. So we've had tons of clients approved already, this year in 2025, consulates like in Paris, Bogota, Toronto. So it's been smooth sailing so far. And
for us on the E2 front, absolutely, it's been smooth sailing. And I definitely agree with you when it comes to immigration. You kind of don't want to wait. And I've been in the investor migration industry for almost a decade now, and seeing how, rules and regulations change, and that kind of alters people's plans. But even for companies like us, who's been, operational in the investor migration industry, which is kind of what we do. We cater towards investors, entrepreneurs, and top talents as well. But at the end of the day, even amongst us, we're like, okay, guys, how do we, make sure we diversify our services?
Well, we were caught with our pants down when they got rid of. Basically, we had a lot of clients obtaining second citizenship in countries like Turkey, where you came from, and Grenada, and then they added to this omnibus bill
Yeah.
that you have to be domiciled in that country for 3 years.
3 years.
And we had a lot of clients that were, a year or less, and that was no longer, eligible for the E2 investor treaty.
Right.
Before that, it was only UK nationals that had to be domiciled in the UK before applying for the E2 visa. We deal with very international entrepreneurs that they have one passport, the spouse has another passport, they're all over the place. They're not necessarily domiciled with the passport that they're using, at least in the prior 3 years. So that was tough, and that was a strategic focus for us at Visa Franchise, going into 2023 to really, hey, what are we going to be selling and servicing, and let's diversify, because there are all different types of avenues to move to the US.
Absolutely.
And we can't have it, where a third of our business, a quarter of our business evaporates overnight.
Of course, and especially in an administration like the Trump administration. Although Donald Trump claims that he's all about investors and top talent and quality immigration to come to America, which has been the philosophy all along. And we always think that it makes sense, and it's going to be great for our business and for our audience as well. We're planning to come to America either through a talent route or through an investment route. However, one might expect sudden and certain changes. So it's like, Matthew McConaughey, right? He makes a pretty good tuna salad, and he says that, is it good then, or is it better after sits in the fridge the next day?
I think better. I like my Indian food a day after. I think you gotta let everything.
Sometimes we'd like to let things simmer a little bit and try to make some decisions. Obviously, moving to another country and changing countries.
You don't want it to get sour though. You don't want it to spoil.
Yes. So that's the thing. I mean, my whole idea is like. And I've been speaking to a lot of you guys as well, and some of you who are watching this video, we've probably spoken before, and I understand the fact that it's a very big decision, and you guys need to take some time and just go back and make calculations and everything. That's brilliant. You should definitely do that. However, you kind of want to understand the fact that things could change for E2 visa as things are about to change for EB5. So while it is there, would you advise our people to sort of like take this opportunity and make the best of it?
Hey, look, I mean, most of our E2 visa clients get a E2 visa for 5 years. So it's not permanent. You can come, you could spend, a few days a year in the US. You could spend the whole 365 here in the US. And you have some time to decide if you want to go back home over that 5-year period. And it's more of, to get your kids fluent in English, get the US experience. Maybe your spouse gets a job and they're working in tech, finance, consulting, or whatever industry, and they have work authorization, and their career trajectory is gonna really jump up and scale up when you go back to your home country or elsewhere. So I wouldn't overthink it. You want to be prepared. You want to spend some time here, try to spend as many vacations here as possible. Go through all your PTO, all your personal time off here in the US. Try to understand the market, neighborhoods, and all that. But give it a shot. I don't think I've ever had a client that
got denied.
No. Well, we've had some denials. We haven't had many final denials where people try it twice. I haven't had a client regret the move.
Oh.
So even though they have suffered severe adversity, I have a client that opened up a franchise, and he wanted to close the business like the first 18 months, as he opened during COVID. Now he's doing over $1 million of sales, settling with the family. The wife's got an awesome job. Kids are at a fantastic public school. But he persevered, and he's hitting $1 million plus within 2 years of opening the business in the US, and had his head down. But definitely there were many times where he would have loved to just say, screw this. I had a really good life back in my home country. I'm gonna go back. But he's definitely a stronger person, and his family is stronger, and it's like kind of the whole package. When you move to the US, yes, it's going to be generally a good business opportunity, but you're going to take a step back probably for 2 to 3 years to take a step forward professionally. Mm-hmm. Very few people parachute into the US and they're, incredible. You have to have relationships Like any other country, they go a long way. Learn the local culture. If you don't speak English fluently, speak English fluently. But yeah, I haven't had any clients regret
No,
moving on the E2 visa.
I mean, you touched upon a great point. And by the way, Patrick, you're writing a book, right? You're writing a book about. Would you like to break the news and when the book is going to come out and what
It's
the
still a
book is
working
about?
title, but essentially 50% of it is what avenues exist to move to the US. So you can start your own independent business, buy a franchise, buy an existing business, invest in real estate, operate a real estate related business, and all the visas that go with those entrepreneurial ventures. So the E2, which we're talking about today, O1 visa, L1, E1, and then you have the more permanent green card opportunities. So that's 50% of the book, but 50% is what about healthcare? What about taxes?
Right.
What about, different company structures? What about retirement planning? What about all these things that you have to have covered so you can focus on your wife and kids, or your husband and your kids, and focus on have the family like well situated, because if the rest of your life isn't in flux, the business isn't going to go well. So that's a big part of the book. Yes, we cover visas and business options extensively. But we've interviewed over 15 entrepreneurs.
Yes,
many
I
of
think
them
that's
here
a special
for 5
thing.
to 10 plus years. What are the hardest things? What were the easiest things? I would say the hardest thing is family back home, where that was a constant theme. Whether they were making $100,000, $500,000 a year, living well here in the U.S., it was missing the family and having better planned out, going back home in the summers, or really accommodating the grandparents to come to the U.S. But that was a constant point that came up in the interviews, and people should know that, and you should plan around that when you're moving countries. And friends and family is a big thing that you're leaving behind, and because you'll meet other immigrants here. Like,
Of course.
I think Florida is 30% foreign-born population. Miami Beach, Miami area, I think it's like 50%. It's really high. So there's people that have gone through the same experience as you, and you can connect easily with them.
You're the only American born that I know around here.
Yeah,
Let me put
I
it
have
that
very
way.
few American-born
Look,
friends.
look at my
in
next door
Miami.
neighbors.
Yeah,
Look
you
at
speak Spanish with them.
Of course, sometimes I've learned a little Spanish. I improved my Spanish a little bit, but there's something very valuable.
What
in this
other
book.
countries can you just talk Spanish to a Turkish guy who maybe doesn't even know Spanish, and that's okay. Everyone's kind of living their life, and that's cool.
By the way, Trump.
You're not complaining about that.
No, I don't complain about nothing. So I love it. By the way, Trump made America's official language English.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear that.
I don't know what the implications of that is going to be here. I don't think that
You should master the language. Anywhere you learn, it's also the local culture, the vocab, the phrases. Like, there's so much you learn from knowing the language.
But if you're coming down to Miami, oh my God,
No, you
gotta
gotta learn
learn
Spanish. You need Spanish.
Absolutely. But there is something very valuable in this book, Patrick, that you have actually interviewed 15 or so people who've been through the journey, and you asked them very critical questions.
Definitely. Try to get them open up as much as possible.
Correct.
Over an hour interview.
Not only from the business perspective, but also from the personal perspective as well. So please be on the lookout for the book when it comes out. You guys will be the first ones to know.
One big takeaway is make sure your family affairs are in line. Make sure you're coming to the U.S. with the right person. You don't want to be coming to the U.S. with a girlfriend or your spouse that the relationship's a little rocky, because this will put your relationship to the test.
That's your
I
takeaway?
came out with a few people. So
okay.
Maybe you got to do marriage therapy or
interesting.
whatever. You got to see a priest, rabbi. I'm on.
Yeah.
Get your marriage tight. Get your marriage tight, and then come here.
I've seen that many times with people who were immigrating to Turkey and Dubai and other places. It has always been a little tricky. But I guess where I was getting at was this. So I speak to prospects all the time who are looking to engage, visa franchise services, especially the E2 visa clients or the top talent, such as O1s, EB1s, and EB2 NIWs. One thing about the E2 visa that keeps coming back up all the time people believe, or they have been led to believe, the fact that somehow 80, 90, or $100,000 is enough to buy a business. Somehow they think, oh, it's okay if you buy a corner store or a liquor store in some ghetto somewhere. We're going to get E2 visa, and it's going to be a good business, and it's going to generate value. I'm sure people who are watching us, some of them think that $100,000 go a long way, to an extent that you can buy a business and it can sustain your family. So I keep hearing this all the time. Unfortunately, some of you guys need a reality check. Look, hear it from me. Okay, I've been there, done that. $100,000 doesn't go a long way in this country. If you're thinking about buying an existing business, I want to buy an existing business, 100K, and my family will depend on it. You're dreaming. I'm sorry, but you're dreaming, right? You need to come to the reality that 100K, at best, what you can buy yourself is maybe a good franchise, something that will be, that could be considered as a job, but something that will require your time and effort in it. If you're willing to spend 300K, 250, 400K, and in some places maybe even a little less than 200K, you might find some legitimate existing businesses. But coming back to the experience of the people that you have interviewed, and Visa Franchise helped over 2,000 people over the course of a decade, who do you think is the best profile that is best positioned to success coming to America, obtaining the E2 visa, and setting up a business? How do that person look like?
I would say late 20s to early 40s, and you already are successful compared to your peers. When you look at your pay or your job title, whatever, like you're in the top 5%, maybe top 1%. And the US is the next place for your talent to really flourish. And maybe you have a little family money, but you're really more self-made. And this investment in the United States needs to work. Your life depends on it. You're going to be providing money for your family based on this business. Maybe your spouse is going to work a little bit in the business in the beginning before finding a job. But I would say that's the profile. You've already had success. I can't make you successful. I can help you continue on the trajectory here in the US, but I can't this is the most competitive market.
Of course.
There's a lot of talent here all over the world. We get some of the best doctors across the globe moving here, best technologists. You're not just competing with native-born Americans. Who cares about the native-born Americans? You're competing with the best immigrants in the world. So you got to bring your A game. And I don't mean to discourage people, but you're going to have to work really hard, and there's a lot of competition, but you have crazy economies of scale. And if you hit it well and there's right product market fit, whether locally in your neighborhood, extended neighborhood, and you're offering a franchise service, offering a service through a franchise, your own independent business, or it's a virtual type business that you can serve Americans throughout the US, you can make a lot of money. Where in Turkey or most of Europe, it would take one generation to have that wealth. And here it could take 5 to 10 years to have generational wealth. But yeah, I would say bring your A game. The clients that are on the best, generally late 30s, early 40s, and it needs to work. Their family's depending on this. They need the business to work, and they're going to make it work. It's going to work. You don't know if it's going to work in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. I can't tell you that. We can study that together and see when the break-even point is for past entrepreneurs like you, or if it's other franchisees. We'll work together on that. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to you, and bring your A game.
No, that's well. First of all, that's been inspirational talk. Thank you, thank you, Patrick Findaro. Really, really looking forward to this particular book. And I'm sure our audience are going to find a huge value in this book. But I want to close the show of, one more point, right? The reason why we came to this conclusion is something in the green card by investment realm was changing. And that was EB5.
Investment amount.
Yes, EB5 seems to be out. Gold card seems to be coming in. And okay, we basically said, hey, look, there's this alternative that is E2. But for most of our clients, they're like, okay, how is it an alternative? It's a non-immigrant visa.
Well, it's priced at 2% of the value of the $5 million. So
Yeah.
you're saying it's priced at 100K. Even if the staffer, the consulate officer started really adjudicating them where you should have already spent 200,000. That's what, 4%?
Something like
Yeah.
that.
So it's like, it's not the green card right away. We'll work on ways to get you the green card. Like
Now, talk to me about those
NIW.
ways now. EB5 going out of the game.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like the doors open and shut, and
So what are the ways? So for example, say some of our clients, they come here, get the E2 visa, they settle down, they're working in their businesses, and things are going well. They like the country, they change their mind, they want to stay here permanently. What green card options they would have?
most of our clients say, almost over the past 10 years, for the first part of that, the most popular option was for them to obtain a green card through the spouse. The spouse would go through the perm process where the company that was sponsoring them for the green card would have to assess the local wages that are being paid, and the offer would have to be higher than Americans for that type of role, or equal to, and they would get a green card through their spouse, whether that be the EB2 category or the EB3 category. We've had some unique situations in other categories like EB1C, EB5, but that was most of it. But then what started to happen was there was an update with USCIS, a ruling rather, that opened up this EB2 NIW. NIW is National Interest Waiver. Mm-hmm. And that program opened up, and it was available for people immediately as long as you weren't born in India or China, and you could sponsor yourself. So that was a great alternative for clients that were doing education-related businesses, technology-related businesses. We have clients that do in-home caregiving services for seniors, and that's of the national importance. Or a few clients that invested in franchises but went back to what they invested in a franchise. Like I can think of one client invested in a restaurant, but for the NIW, it was really more based on a consulting business, really connected to what he did in his home country. So we had cases like that, or maybe the spouse going the EB2 NIW. But then it evolved again, where the wait now is 2 to 3 years. Forget if you're Indian, getting an NIW if you're born in India, 50 plus years. 50 is our latest estimate.
It's not
just
50,
us, but
it's 15.
There's different
On paper.
Yeah, exactly. On paper, I think it's like 12.5. But
Yeah.
if you do really run out the math, there are, beyond just myself, Patrick, people that think it's like well over 50 years, and we hope that will be remedied. We pray that will be remedied. But the EB1A is current, so if you meet 3 of 10 criteria showing that you're in the top of your field, one of those, say, being high paid, that you're highly compensated, highly remunerated for your services, and a lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with in their home country, say in Brazil, France, Italy, Canada, they were in the top 1%, 2%, 5% of entrepreneurs, and they're able to meet that criteria. And there's a few other criteria that they can meet. They can apply for the EB1A. So those are direct paths that the approval rate is around 70% for those categories. We'll see it traditionally was higher, and especially if you have a STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics type field, it's higher. It's closer to 80, 90%. But that has been the go-to path for our clients to obtain permanent residency for them and their family over the past few years, because the employer sponsorship, a lot of less employers are amenable to sponsoring their employees, and the time frame has just been kicked out. I mentioned 2 to 3 years for NIW, where employee sponsorship might be 3 to 4 years.
Right. Patrick, my takeaway from this, and this came out, I was in my living room and just saw the announcement of Gold Card, and I remember thinking about, and even potentially message you to, or you message me and say, we need to do an episode about this and highlight the fact that how E2 visa is still an amazing opportunity out there for a lot of people.
As of today, you can get in at 2% of the value
the Gold
of the
Card.
Gold Card.
Correct.
So 100K,
yeah,
you're in, as opposed to the 5 mil, and then we should be able to work on a strategy with our in-house attorney, with the filing attorney, strategy attorneys that we work with in our network, to get a compelling case. And it might take 6 months, 12 months to really work on yourself and build up your CV and go out there and apply for awards and push to be in the press. So it might take some time, but I think it's definitely.
But you got the luxury of time. You got 5 years, and you
Yeah.
can renew it.
Where there's a will,
in
there's a
time, yeah.
way. You know, focus
Yeah.
first on making sure the business is successful, and then working with Visa franchise. You know, we'll provide the proper tools to, if you want to stay here with your family and you want to set down permanent roots, we'll work together on that.
Patrick Findauer, thank you so much. Thanks for the time. Guys, if you're interested in applying E2Vs or coming over here to the US, maybe buying a franchise, maybe setting up your own business, whatever the case may be, you could reach out to us with this WhatsApp number, or you could shoot us straight email too.
Yeah, I don't mind if people email me, patrick@visafranchise.com. So
I thought that you were gonna grab it right away, like Patrick at Visa. we never rehearsed that, but you understand the drill. Reach out to us, and we can have a discovery solution call. We can look at your profile and your unique situation and come up with the best way forward for you, and then we'll take it from there. So thank you very much for watching, Patrick. Thank you for coming.
thanks.
See you in the next one.